Very good evening to one and all. Welcome to this wonderful way of communicating with all the students out there for the CA final course, a virtual coaching class conducted by Board of Studies of ICAI. And I'm sure with all the learnings out here, you will come out as a better professional. Friends, as in the past lectures, I've been covering the corporate and economic laws. And for the next 2-3 sessions, again, I will be taking you onto a different world of this corporate and economic laws. And that will be on the area of investigation, inquiry, and thereafter it would be related to winding up also. So I hope by this time, a lot of clarity must have come in regarding the company law aspect. And therefore, we are going to have a different look of the company law. So friends, the coverage would be on this word 3I. I think when the word 3 comes in and the 3 words which are common, we are able to recall a lot of other things also. So I focused on this word 3I, which talks about inquiry, inspection, and investigation. Though most of us are quite familiar with the commonality between these 3 words, and sometimes we think that all these 3 words are in general spoken interchangeably. But yes, when we take a look at the law part, then you are able to differentiate between these 3 words about inquiry, inspection, and investigation. So how do we differentiate these 3 words, which is very important as per law, because each particular word will have a certain consequence and certain actionable steps. So inquiry may call for a certain kind of steps, and inspection may call for a different level of steps, and investigation finally will be a more detailed one, maybe. So let us differentiate these 3 words, inquiry, inspection, and investigation, and from the perspective of the law. First is obviously I'm talking in the general meaning. So when we talk of these 3 words, 3I, then I think the gravity, if you consider from the gravity point of view, we all can differentiate it very easily, where we can say that inquiry is the first step. And so therefore the gravity level will be low. When I talk about the gravity level, that means the focus, the type of checking would be a centimeter on the periphery of the information. So it would be just like a basic data collection, information collection by the respective authorities from the company. So that could be just a normal routine inquiry also, not necessarily on a specific note. So it could be just a routine information collection. Maybe then we have the inspection part. So again, inspection is again a routine checking. So inquiry is just data collection, and then thereafter, based on that data collection, you think then you can go a bit more. But then it's a routine kind of nature where nothing specific is on the mind agenda, but we just want to ensure that things are working properly. That could be inspection. But then further, it can lead to investigation. So an investigation is an in-depth checking. Obviously, inspection can be done on certain grounds also. But in general, when we are trying to differentiate, I think we can differentiate it from this perspective: basic data collection, routine checking, and in-depth checking. So investigation will call for more detailed analysis of things. So this is how you can differentiate the 3 I's. But legally, let us understand now what is the difference between these 3 words, and legally in the sense the steps, and when can the company can be inquired, or when the company can be inspected, or when the company can be investigated. So friends, again, as in my previous classes, what I've done, I have prepared certain kind of graphs, images, charts, through which we'll be able to understand the flow of the process, as it becomes very easy for all of us to understand the law perspective. But yes, remember, when it comes to answering the questions in the law, you need to have that content also. Understanding is one perspective, but then when you write it down in the paper part, I think the content content is very important, because mark scoring is only through the process of content. So at a glance, what we will be covering is a different aspect of inspection inquiry, and then investigation, and then other miscellaneous provisions. So inspection inquiry will cover the section from 206 to 29, and then investigation will be covering from 210 to 219, with specific certain provisions will not be covered, which will be very general. And then 220 onwards till 229, these are miscellaneous provisions covering the inspection and inquiry part. So yes, from exam perspective, obviously things are, it is very difficult to say that what part is important, what part can come in the exams. But more general, I think this is very common, and investigation on certain aspects are very important. Right? So questions have been asked from relative these sections also, 223, 224, 222. Few questions have been asked from these provisions also, but yes, the probability may be very low. But yes, one question is definite from this particular topic. Coverage, I cannot really comment on the exact coverage, but yes, anything between 4 to 6 marks is a reasonable coverage. Now, why do I say this would be an important chapter? Only because, the focus is very clear. There cannot be much of very ifs and thens conditions, not a lot of specific situations could come out of all these things. So the questions could be directly out of the section part only. So that means if you're thorough with the sections part, then I think it's very easy to score from this particular topic. Okay, so let's start and begin with the word inquiry and inspection, and then we'll further go on to the investigation part. So the whole process starts from the world of inquiry. Good. Now, inquiry by whom? That's the question. So we all understand the different level, the structure of the whole company MCA structure, where we have the company, then company has the ROC, the regional directorate, the MCA part, and then the central government. Normally, this is the whole structure where you have to understand it. Within that purview, within this whole structure, we have the jurisdiction authority, that is NCLT, the special court, the SFIO, and so on. So there are other judicial authority and special agency also. But I think the picture of the whole structure should be clear in your mind, that who are the stakeholders in this whole process, apart from the company, the shareholders, the creators, and so on. But from the legal part and the structural part from the government angle, what is the whole different levels. So once you know this level, I think then it becomes very easy for all of us to relate the correlation between the steps taken by each of the authority. So the first authority which comes into the picture is the ROC, and we all know that each state has got its own ROC, Registrar of Companies, and you will find as number of ROC as many states are there. Whatever you must have seen that in your offices also, at times you might have heard that ROC mein file karna hai, ROC mein file karna hai, ROC has called for such kind of information, and so on. So ROC is basically Register of Companies, where he can generate inquiry under two sections, 2061 and 2062. So these are the two parts of 206 where inquiry could be generated by the ROC. Good. Now the question comes in from exam perspective on under what circumstances the inquiry can be generated. So straightforward 4-mark question, 6-mark question. Under what circumstances inquiry can be generated. Friends will be solving few case studies as well as MCQ also, so that we get much clarity on the law part as well as have practice for the exam part. Okay, so when will this particular section be invoked? 206(1). So when on a scrutiny of any document. Remember, on a scrutiny of any document. Now, what do you mean by document, friends? So what are the documents which the ROC can scrutinize? That is very relevant. We all know that we all have to file a lot of, the company has to file a lot of documents and returns. So under section 92, annual returns, then under section 137 of filing of all the financial account statements. So there are a lot of returns which are filed. So based on whatever information which the company has been submitting on different point of time, it may be related to the Ben form which has been submitted, any kind of resolution which have been submitted by filing respective forms. So there can be n number of documents which are submitted, and based on any scrutiny of any document filed by the company or on any information received by him, it may be some from somewhere else also. So under these two circumstances, where the ROC feels he can inquire. Inquire about what? So how will he inquire? That's the question. How is he going to inquire? So the action which the registrar is going to take, that is of the opinion that any information or explanation is necessary for whatever you have filed as in the form of return. So if the ROC feels that he needs further information or explanation, then he will send a written notice. Very important, a written notice has to be sent by the registrar. And what he will mention in that written notice is to furnish in writing such information or explanation. Two things. Number one, to furnish in writing any such information or explanation for whatever you have filed under various sections of company law. And he may call for certain documents also. You need to produce any further document, whatever he has written in the notice part. So that is the first level of inquiry which the ROC, the registrar, can make based on two conditions, remember, either on the basis of scrutiny of the documents or any other information received by him from any other source. We don't know the source, so probably that is not required to be mentioned also. From where have you got this information? Good. So first step is over. Now what next? Obviously, this notice has been given to whom? The company, and the company has to reply to this particular notice. So what is the company and the officers going to do? There's a liability on the company and the officers. So the liability is that they need to furnish the information and produce the documents. Whatever has been called for in the written notice, they have to provide it. That's very natural. No problems in that. I think to this extent, I think it's very clear and very simple also. No complications. Now, who has been held responsible for providing? The company and its officers. And we need to go to the definition of officer to understand who can be the officers. The question comes in that can we call on the past officers? The answer is yes. As per the Act, a notice can be a separate notice, has to be sent to the past officers also, and thereafter they will be subject to, within this particular section, to provide the necessary information or any other document which has been required from them. So here comes the exam question part, friends, where a question could be framed, where a specific situation could be given that whether the notice given to the past officer is liable to be held in the court of law. The answer is yes, it can be held in the court of law, because as per section 206, remember, notices can be sent to past officers. That means the past officers, once he thinks that he has left the company, thereafter he is not liable for presentation in front of any authority. The answer is no. So suppose you have resigned as an officer of the company 6 months back, 1 year back, 2 years back, then you are liable to provide that information, provided that transaction information was important with respect to the year in which you were working. That is the important condition. So it has to be mentioned that because you were an officer during this particular period, therefore you have to provide the information and then you need to reply. But if that information does not pertain to your period, you can very well reply. But the notice can come in and you can very well reply, because this information does not relate to my period. I'm not able to comment on that. But then can it be done? Can the information, the notice could be sent to past officers? The answer is yes, right? So remember this, past officers may be called upon through separate notice. Fine, so this is the first level inquiry. Then what else? Then the word comes in as inspection, friends. So from inquiry, we shift on to the inspection part. This 206 section, if you read clause by clause, then there is a bit of confusion when in the first two parts there's an inquiry, then you go to the inspection, and then again you come back to the inquiry part and the subsequent subsections. So at times it becomes confusing, and during the flow you get a provision where the central government comes into the picture. A bit of haphazardness, but then that is how the law has been framed. The first two steps, inquiry, then the directors and the officers have to respond. Fine. But then what can happen next? The registrar, on whatever has been given, he can give additional written notice for inspection. That is under 2063. So that means inspection by registrar. Now, conditions for inspection is clearly specified. That's important. That's relevant for exam perspective, friends, that when can the inspection be done? So the conditions are when no information has been supplied. Under what? 2061. So under 2061, when there has been inquiry notice sent to the company and the company does not reply, then a written notice can be sent by the registrar for further inspection. When the registrar feels that the supplied information is inadequate, so he may have called for the detailed list of transactions done from the related party, and he feels that the detailed list is inadequate. The information is inadequate. How can he find that the information is inadequate? Maybe because of the filing by some other company, where the other company has shown this company as a related party, and this company, the company which you are in charge, is not shown as a related party. So there is a mismatch, and you have not shown that person as a related party. So we may think that the supplied information is inadequate. That can be one example. And the scenario could be on scrutiny. It is found that unsatisfactory state of affairs exists. What is unsatisfactory state of affairs exists? That means the company's operations are not working properly. So based on whatever document has been submitted, he feels that the state of affairs of the company is not in line with the law, and the documents supplied by the company is not giving that full information. Now, inadequate and full information is one and the same thing, but then this is more in relation to what the state of affairs. So where he feels that you are trying to hide something, then he can give additional written notice for inspection. Remember that. Right? So for inspection, the conditions are very much clear, and based on this, he can give an additional written notice. Now, in this second notice, what can be done? He can call for further books within the time and place after recording reasons. So that is very important. So as a ROC, I think as a registrar, he needs to take care of this particular fact that he has to record reasons for giving this additional written notice. And especially the time and the place will be mentioned that you need to produce the books of accounts or whatever documents are required. So three conditions, remember, relevant from exam perspective. When can the inspection be done? Under section 206, subsection 3. And very important, the ROC has to mention the reasons for calling for such inspection of the books of accounts. So this is one aspect, friends. 206.1.2 will talk about inquiry. 206.3 will talk about inspection. Now, certain concepts relating to inquiry and inspection has been mentioned in 2064, 5, and 6, which again will talk about inquiry and inspection. But then question comes in, what is the difference between 2061 inquiry, 2063 inspection, and then whatever we are going to study? So that is why I have named it as a parallel inquiry and inspection. That means 2061 can go on, and simultaneously we can have this 2064, 5, and 6 also. So what is going to happen in 2064 inquiry? 2064 inquiry. So registrar may call on the company to furnish in writing any information or explanation and carry out such inquiry as he deems fit. After providing a company, I think I'm using this word as a common word ROBH is reasonable opportunity to be heard. Under what conditions this particular inquiry, this information can be called upon by the ROC? Now remember, 2061 is again another point of inquiry, 2064 is another point of inquiry. So these are two separate conditions. So under one he can do it, under 2064 he can do it. If the registrar is satisfied on the basis of information available with him, whatever, or on the representation made to him by any person that the business of the company is being carried on for a fraudulent or unlawful purpose. So that means he gets a representation from, let's say, the shareholders or the creditors also. It can be from creditors also, any person. Or if the registrar is satisfied that the grievances of the investors are not being addressed. So there is a lot of investor grievances which are pending for long. Investors, that means people who have invested in the company. So if their grievances not being solved, let's say regarding distribution of dividend, regarding submission of documents, or regarding payment of interest on the deposits made by the investors. So it can be so many things. So if these are not being addressed to, then the registrar may call on the company to furnish in writing or any explanation. As I said, 2061 is different and 2064 is again a different, but could be a parallel inquiry. Now, before calling the company to furnish in writing, registrar has to inform the company of the allegations made against it by a written order. That means he needs to mention that what are the allegations against the company. It may be regard to the fraudulent activity or unlawful purpose for which the company is running its business, or the grievances of the investors, as I've given you certain examples. So from that perspective, he has to write it down in that particular order, that why he's trying to call for certain kind of information. So whatever allegations have been put against the company, that has been to be written. So this another inquiry can be generated or set by the registrar. So remember, when the question comes is under inquiry, so we have two angles, 2061. 2061 is very clear when he whatever information on scrutiny of the documents, that is, I think, more or less same the first point, or what you have mentioned is to, or any information received by him. So any information has not been very specific, so it could be any information. And here the difference is that a representation will come from any person, and either the grievances are unaddressed. So inquiry is done. Now what happens? Let's say the inquiry is open and you're not responding. Who is not responding? The company. And the officer of the company is not responding. And there has to be some penal clause. We'll see to the penal clause. But then certain general clause, remember, if the company has been carrying out businesses for fraudulent purpose, then every officer of the company will be in default. And every officer of the company will default as per section 447. And we know that the section 447 is one of the deadliest section of the Companies Act, which will talk about all the penalties in case of fraud. So we need to be very careful be aware. I think every company, every person who is associated with any company should be aware of this section 447. So 447 is invoked if on a specific condition we think that the business has been carried on for a fraudulent purpose. Why? Because here it has been made, and based on the inquiry, the ROC comes to know that yes, it has been carrying on the business for fraudulent purpose, then 447 can be invoked. Right. Now we come to, as I said, in this whole section, there could be a lot of variation coming from inquiry, inspection, then inquiry, and then again inspection. So within this section, we have inspection by the central government. So one inspection was by the registrar on specific three conditions. Now, when can inspection be done by the central government? So inspection by central government, very important, very relevant section, friends, because in exams, as I said, there could be a direct question: when can be the inquiry done by the registrar? When can the inspection be done by the central government? So you should be knowing the different situation. So when circumstances warrant and after giving a reasonable opportunity to be heard, can direct inspection of books and accounts by an inspector. So they can appoint any inspector, or they can authorize any statutory authority to carry out inspection. So they can give a right to a particular statutory authority that you can go ahead with an inspection under 2065 and 6. So directly, central government can invoke this provision for inspection part. Now, when the inquiry is being done, or when the investigation is being done, as not the investigation, sorry, inspection is being done by the registrar or by the inspector appointed by the central government or by the statutory authority, then the directors or the company officer of the company has to provide the information. What if they are not able to provide this information? Remember, friends, if they are not able to provide this information, there will be a penal clause. And remember, these are all related to the MCQ part, where direct question could come in the MCQ regarding the penal consequences, and the amount is extend to 1 lakh rupees. And if there is a continuing failure, which may extend to 500 rupees for every day of default. Now, I think the biggest problem comes in remembering all these penal consequences, and I know it's quite tough, but somehow you need to devise a method where you can create a, plot it and map it against different provisions, that what is the penal consequences, and then try to find out certain correlation factors between all the penal consequences of different section. Now, friends, I think we still have certain confusions, or confusion may arise, and the confusion may arise about can the direct inspection, then can the central government directly inspect the company? The answer is yes, it can do. And that is why what I have done, I have tried to give you the different routes from inquiry to inspection, and then we'll understand which particular route can be directly applied or not. So ideally, the first step is this one. As a registrar, you will ROC will send a notice under 2061 for inquiry, and thereafter he can go into inspection. But there's another section which can directly be invoked, and based on certain conditions, fraudulent manner and so on. If you remember 3 conditions, under 2063 also there is 3 conditions for inspection. Under 2064 also there is condition for inquiry. Remember, this is for inquiry again. So this is from inquiry to inspection. 2061 to 3 is inquiry to inspection. This is inquiry to inspection. This is directly inquiry, and this is directly inspection. So now we have a clear-cut picture that there could be 3 modes of conducting an inquiry or inspection. So either we follow the step of inquiry to inspection. Obviously, in this case, inspection is done under specific situation. Under this, the inquiry can be done under specific situation. And where the CG feels that, they warrant certain conditions where the inspection should be done, they will appoint a particular person for the inspection part. So I think this slide gives you an understanding of the different parts of 206. So 206 is only about 2 eyes inquiry and inspection. and when will this be invoked? So what is the best route? If you have the different routes, which is the best route? Obviously, it will depend upon the conditions mentioned in those routes. But can we directly go to 2064 for inquiry? Answer is yes. Can we directly go to investigation under? Yes. And can the central government directly go under 2065 and 6? The answer is yes. The best route, it all depends upon the respective authority to decide on the best route. Except for this particular first part, these steps are being given 2061, and then additional notice could be sent if the following conditions are satisfied. Then he can go for the investigation part. So all these pictures give you an idea of the best route. So this covers your section 206, the first part. And if the first part is very much clear, then you generate an idea that today when you read a newspaper that the inquiry is being conducted in this particular company, then you can just recall in your mind that yes, it's talking about 206 when it is about inquiry. So 206 has been invoked. And inquiry, that means either by the ROC or the central government can appoint an inspector. So a question where a group of shareholders have made a complaint to the concerned ROC that the business is being carried on for unlawful and fraudulent purpose. Whether the ROC has a power to order for an inquiry into the affairs of the company. If yes, what is the procedure followed by the ROC? Whether the inquiry should be pursued by ROC in case the complaint is withdrawn by the same group of shareholders subsequent to the order of inquiry. Whether the central government has the power to direct this ROC to carry out the inquiry. Now, first, second, and this part is very simple because that is directly taken from the Act itself. This is an important part where we need to understand if the inquiry of the complaint has been withdrawn, then what can happen? If the complaint is withdrawn, then what can happen? That is important to be understood. Yes, the ROC has the power to order for an inquiry. 2064 is a section where we know that on a representation made to him by any person that the business is being carried for a fraudulent purpose. 2064. Right? So he can do that. So the answer is yes, he has got the power. Procedure to be followed. The procedure is that he has to give permission in writing, send a notice calling for explanation, and when he will inform in writing, he has to inform all the allegation made against by it in a written order. So that is the procedure to be followed. So notice will be given mentioning all the allegations. Yes, the ROC can withdraw the inquiry because the shareholders have subsequently withdrawn the complaint. So the ROC can withdraw the inquiry. But if he has got certain further information, then he can continue with the inquiry. Remember that. If he has got any further information which warrants for an inquiry, he can carry on. Whether central government has the power to direct the ROC to carry out the inquiry? Yes, the central government can directly appoint an inspector or appoint any statutory authority to carry out the inquiry. So that is also a possibility under section 2065 and 2066. So directly straightforward questions, though it has been framed in a form of a small situation-based analysis, but directly extracting the law, writing down the provisions of 206, especially because inquiry is under a specific situation, right? Here, remember, it is not based on any return which you have filed or any other information. It is a representation which has been made here. A representation is coming into the ROC. So that is why 2064 has been invoked, not 2061. Let's have this MCQ based question also. So what is the circumstances in which notice can be served for inspection? Notice for inspection, remember, 2063 is for inspection. So what were the three situations again under which the inspection could be done? Where the information supplied, no information has been supplied, no information is inadequate, no information is inadequate, and he feels that unsatisfactory state of affairs exists. Three things, and the fourth option is all of the above. So the correct answer is all of the above. So I think, friends, MCQ really gives you a different perspective to practicing questions, and it helps you in grasping things in the correct manner, and also breaks the whole section into different parts. Yes, so another one. Who has the power to call for information, inspect books, and conduct inquiry under Section 206 of the Companies Act? So remember, it is about inquiry. So it is ROC who has got the power to call for information, inspect books, and conduct inquiry. You know, I think here we have used two words. So people may get confused from the word central government, but central government will not call. He will only direct and appoint an inspector. So that inspector will call for information. Remember. So when you are doing the inspection and the inquiry part, obviously you have got some powers. Otherwise, how can I conduct that inquiry? So that powers have been laid down under Section 207, which clearly lays down the certain steps which the authority or the person, the ROC, can take. Along with the powers, there are some duties of the director also, and the directors along with the officer of the company. It has been clearly mentioned that they have to do something. So let us understand first the duty of the director along with the officer or the employee of the company. And as we have seen that they have to produce and furnish such statement information as may be required. So they need to provide this as whatever has been required. Powers of the registrar now. That is important. Now, what is the power of the registrar? The powers of the registrar are that they can make or cause to be made copies of books of accounts and other books and papers. Obviously, because they need to do the inquiry part and inspection part, so they can make a copy. And very important, if you have seen or experienced any inspection which has been going on by any statutory authority or by any other agency, I think you must have seen that they normally place marks of identification is a token that the investigation has been done, so that somewhere else the books are produced, so they are aware of this. So that is why this power, this particular action has been derived from a particular section, or it could be given in the rules also. But it has been given in the section part that they can place marks of identification also. Along with that, I think this is more in relation to the inspection part, that if the registrar wants to summon a person, how can he summon a person? So the civil power has been given to this particular person under Code of Civil Procedure. What has been mentioned there, the same power has been defined here also. where they can call for discovery and production of books of accounts. Summoning, that is important. I think that is more important. You can issue summon and call for attendance of a particular person and examining on oath. That's the most important aspect. And inspection of any books and register any of the documents of the company at any place. So that means they want to access a particular location that has been given under this particular power. So very important, friends, because inspection and inquiry are certain steps where without any power, I think they are not able to do. They'll not be able to do it. That is why such particular steps have been incorporated. Now, penalty for contravention, as I said, there will be a lot of penalties because here there are a lot of steps and the officer and the director has to comply with such provisions. So, as I said, you need to map it on an Excel part. That is very important so that you are aware of each penal consequences. So both will be liable to penal consequences about 25,000 to 1 lakh and plus imprisonment up to 1 year. Imprisonment up to 1 year. Very important. Imprisonment up to 1 year. Now, this you need to remember from exam perspective. If you are found guilty, if you are contravening this provision, then what is going to happen, friends? Then you shall deem to vacate office. And you know you need to refer to section 167, what is going to happen in case of vacation of an office. Plus, you will be also disqualified to hold office in any other company. So this is a very strict provision where you will be forced to leave this particular company, and also you'll not be eligible to hold any office in other company. So that is why people do comply with all these particular provisions, and you just need to provide information. So 207 will talk about the powers of the registrar and along with that duties of the director. So very simple MCQ. If the director and officer of the company has been convicted of an offense under section 207, the director or the officer shall continue to hold the position till completion of 10th hour cannot be reappointed. Deemed to have vacated his office, yes. He is disqualified from holding an office in any company, yes. So correct answer is both B and C. Both B and C. Good, friends. Now we have seen this process is on, where the inquiry is being done by the registrar and the inspection has been initiated by central government. What next? This process is on. Powers have been given. So a report will be prepared finally. A report will be prepared finally. And who will prepare the report? Obviously the registrar. They are going to prepare this report and they're going to place this report somewhere. And what is that somewhere? And what is going to happen after this report has been placed? So after the inspection, the inspector will submit his report. To whom? That's important, friends. Very important from MCQ as well as from a question, descriptive type question, where the report has to be submitted to the central government. To the central government. And the report may contain recommendations for further investigation. Remember. So that means if investigation has to be invoked, probably the report prepared under section 208 is the base for the central government for investigating further. So based on this, the government take suitable action on the report. Now, what is that suitable action? If nothing serious is found, the government can close the file, fine, or they can take further action as may deem fit. So it all depends upon what has been mentioned in the report. And the word is, remember, that he can take suitable action. Now, what is suitable will depend upon the gravity of the report, and accordingly, the central government has to initiate further action. So 208, I think, is just calls for the report part, but then it's a very simple section. But finally, that gives a base for further actionable steps. And remember, the report has to be given to the central government. Any time frame which has been given, friends, I think no time frame has been mentioned out here that they have to submit a report within this particular time frame. And that is why this whole process takes a lot of time. So I think that is where the law at times, fails to justify because of the lack of strict guidelines on a particular time frame. That if this time frame could be introduced, then the overall impact of these provisions could be more, and it can bring a lot of justice wherever required, and it can add value to all the people, the stakeholders who have involved, and they have been subject to a lot of losses because of the fraudulent transaction. Friends, if you read papers, then on the front, I think whatever you have studied in company law, right from the point of presentation of accounts, the directors part, the meeting the board part, then the KMP part. But most of the news in the newspaper, in the media, is in relation to this investigations and inquiry, because that creates that buzz among the people who read the news, and therefore, as a normal chartered accountant, prospective chartered accountant, I think we should be aware of these provisions so that we are able to understand that what steps are the government taking, or what could be the possible reasons that these steps have been taken by the government. A very common word heard across all the acts, be it GST, income tax, and even in company law, it's about search and seizure. So along with the inspection and inquiry, this has to be added, because without this, I think no inspection or investigation could be complete unless you have an holding on all the documents, and that is only possible when you do the search and the seizure part. So we have covered 3 sections, friends, 206 to 208. As we understand, I think the provisions are very simple, and not much of complications are involved in these provisions. And that is why it is easy to score in the exam part. A lot of times we do come across all these words of seizure, confiscation, disgorgement. I would suggest that you should be clear on all these terminology, at least in the normal way also, where if you become a prospective chartered accountant, I think this will be frequently heard words. So seizure, confiscation, disgorgement, I think a lot of you might be clear on this differentiation, the different meanings of this word. But just to clarify, seizure is only when you capture certain things, but then you are liable to return it. You can just seize it, but then you have to return it. Confiscate is that you take the ownership and then you're not liable to return it also. That means it is under your possession and it will continue to do so. And disgorgement is something, where you are liable to give back something. Let's say you have earned certain profit out of fraudulent way. You have generated any asset because of fraudulent way. That means you need to give that back asset, give that cash which has been generated because of fraudulent activities. By illegal means, you have earned that money. So it happens in a lot of cases under SEBI. It happens that the disgorgement of profit. So you need to give back that profit which has been earned by you by fraudulent manner, and somebody has incurred a loss. So you need to give that profit which you have been earned by you. So the words will be used in this section also in various parts. So that is why I thought that it is better you should have a basic understanding of the differentiation between these words of seizure, confiscation, and disgorgement. Normally, it is more of seizure and confiscation which is used. So search and seizure, the registrar or the inspector. Now, how come the inspector is coming into the picture? Remember, the central government can direct an inspector, appoint an inspector to do the investigation part. So that is why the word registrar or the inspector. On reasonable grounds, believe that the books relating to the affairs of the company may be destroyed, mutilated, altered, falsified, or secreted. I think we all understand the difference between all these words: destroyed, mutilated, altered, or falsified, or secreted. I'll not go and explain details of these words, but important part is after order of special court. After order of special court, that means they have to take a prior permission of special court. Now, special court, where we all know what is the purpose of special court, and the purpose of special court is to for a specific transaction under the company law. So they will come up, and the constitution of special court has been given. I think that will covered in section 435, if I'm not wrong. Yes, not covered out here. Yes, 435, I think that's a section, if I'm not wrong, but maybe. Anyway. So 435, special code where it has been created, and through this special code, once the order has been made, they can enter and search any place, search and seize any books. That is very important. So they can seize any books. In a lot of news item, you must have heard that they have done a search of this place and seized all the books of accounts. So that is under this particular section, where they have got the power under section 209. They can do that. Now, they can search, seize books relating to what? So books may be related to the company, for the company, for the director. The documents may be in relation to the auditor or the company secretary, and so on. So there could be multiple things for which documents could be seized for multiple reasons. So these are the 5 things which have been specially mentioned. Yes, so special code 435, remember, for speedy process. Search, seize books in relation to all these things. Till how much time period they can hold these books? So answer is 180 days, which is fair enough. 6 months time is given to all these people to do all the inquiry in the inspection part. And if they want to go beyond 180 days, yes, they can do so by an order in writing. So if they get an order in writing, they can go beyond 180 days also. In a lot of cases, it has been noticed that the books of accounts are lying beyond 180 days. And then if you want to prepare this books of accounts for a company, they will obviously say that, the books have been seized and they are lying with the department. Now, how the process goes on, once they come and do the search and seizure, they will prepare a panchnama or a list where they'll mention that they are seizing these books of accounts and they are under the custody of this department or this registrar or the inspector. And they'll prepare this list and get it signed by the management, the directors or the officer, and then keep it with themselves. So the management or the directors will, when they need to prepare the financial statements as per the law, then they will produce this panchnama that I don't have the books of accounts, so I cannot prepare it. So I'm helpless about it unless the books are returned. So that is why this time frame has been given, which may be extended. But then this causes a lot of hardship at times, especially when you have to comply with the law part. So friends, we have done 4 sections, 206 to 209. As I initially mentioned that we have the inspection and the inquiry part from 206 to 209. That's the 4th section. That's first part which we have covered directly, when inquiry can be done, when inspection can be done, along with the powers of the registrar and along with the powers of search and seizure. Okay, so the question is a simple question. The registrar or inspector is required to obtain the approval of which authority before initiating search and seizure? I think it is very much clear that we need to take permission of what? The special code under 435. As I mentioned, for speedy recovery, for specific purpose, this code has been created and we need to take that permission. Okay, here is a problem again regarding the penalty part. As I told you, it is difficult to recall, but yes, in MCQ it can be asked. So if a company fails to furnish any information, explanation, produce any document required under section 206, the company and every officer of the company who is in default shall be finable up to, fine up to. I think we have not seen any fine which is less than 1 lakh. Remember the one standard rule. So I have not found any rule which penalty which is less than 1 lakh. That means subject minimum it starts from 1 lakh only. There might be certain cases where it could be lower also, but then I think 1 lakh has been a reasonable amount. So fine up to 1 lakh is the correct answer. Okay, registrar or the inspector shall return the books and papers seized as soon as it is as may be, and in case not later than. Remember, so though it can be returned within 180 days, before 180 days also, but maximum it can keep up till 180th day. Obviously, it can go beyond also 180 days, subject to written order. The registrar or the inspector shall, after the inspection of books of accounts or an inquiry under section 206 and other books and papers of the company under section 207, submit a report to whom? Either MCA, ROC, NCLT, central government. Friends, remember, MCA is just a ministry. So no report does not directly goes to the MCA part, though it will govern all the respective stakeholders involved in this whole process. But nothing goes to the MCA directly. So the report has to go to someone. Now, central, when you mention central government, I think that is what we have discussed. Registrar will not submit a report to himself. It has to submit a report to central government. Now, to central government, to whom? Now, who is representative of central government? Obviously, somebody in the ministry part. So there has to be someone in the ministry part, or normally what we can understand is the RD, regional directorate. So there is a ROC, Register of Companies. There is a regional directorate. So regional directorate is more of the representative of the central government, though it can be, they can be termed as a representative of the central government. So the report goes to this central government. That is true to the RD. So again, here another provision comes in regarding punishment or the penal consequences. If any director or officer of the company disobeys the direction issued by the registrar or the inspector, the director or officer shall be punishable. So again, let us go back to 207 and just see. So you can see minimum 25,000, 1 lakh rupees plus imprisonment of 1 year. Plus imprisonment of 1 year. Imprisonment of 1 year. Fine ranges from 25 to 1 lakh. Either A or B or both A and B. So answer is both A and B. Right? Okay, so here comes a case study based on whatever we have studied so far. So group of direct creditors of Mac Trading Limited makes a complaint to the ROC, Hyderabad, alleging that the management of the company is indulging in destruction and falsification of the accounting records of the company. That means group of creditors. So can they make it? The question is, can they make it? Remember, any person. Remember, the law says any person. Very important. I think that's where you need to understand each word. The complainants request the ROC registrar to make immediate steps to seize the records of the company so that the management may not be allowed to tamper with the records. The complaint was received at 10 a.m. on 1st July 2018 and ROC entered the premises at 10:30 a.m. Examine the powers of registrar to seize the books of the accounts. That means now we need to refer section. Remember, what is the section? 206. Does it cause for seizure, search and seizure? No. 207 gives powers for keeping the books of accounts, summon, producing the documents at a required place, but does not give them power to search and seize. 208 is all about a report. So we have read 209. Search and seizure. So let us go to 209. Yes, so they think that they can be tampered. Tampered means altered, or it can be falsified. So registrar inspector on reasonable grounds to believe. On reasonable grounds means he has received a complaint from the creditors, so that could be a reasonable ground. Answer, yes, it can be a reasonable ground because there is a complaint which has been filed, and that gives them sufficient reasons that there is something wrong going on the company. Fine. So can he do the search and seizure? Answer is yes. After order of special court, he can enter and seize the books. So that means he has to take a permission from the special court. Has he taken that? So here, if you see, the complaint was received at 10 a.m. and they entered the premises at 10:30. Between 10 to 10:30, there is no such process which has been followed by the ROC for special court. Therefore, though the powers are there, but the action done by ROC is not correct. Powers are there, but the actions, the steps taken by ROC is not correct. He must have taken a permission. Thereafter, he could enter and seize the documents. So again, as I mentioned, that in the whole provisions, you need to remember certain important points, and that could be learned from these various case-based situations, which really helps you in understanding different points. So please do always review all these MCQ questions and the case-based situation, which gives the crux or where are the actual problems which comes in the practical environment. And because these case-based situations are generated from an actual environment only. Let's have another look. The ROC West Bengal has received a complaint from a group of creditors of a company. in order to prevent the unearthing of their embezzlement of company's funds. Good. And engage in falsification and destruction of original accounting books and records. The complaints urge the registrar to seize the accounting books and records so that the directors may not be able to tamper the same. Again, you need to state the powers. As I said, the powers are there. The answer is yes, the powers are there. And obviously, they can follow the steps to seize the books of accounts. So here, the relevant sections you have to mention, 209. See, when you answer it, I think you need to answer it by mentioning the relevant section. And you can mention the relevant section that when he can think of seizing, when he thinks these 5 steps, you can very well remember these 5 words, which can create a mnemonic for the same. Then he needs to take a special permission from the special court. One point which you should remember generally, he can make the copy of the documents. The cost of the same shall be borne by the company itself. Right? So if there is a heavy cost which has been incurred for taking of all the photocopies, the company will bear the cost, which anyhow they will bear it. Further, you can always add as a suggestion that the books have to be returned within 180 days. Okay. So now we have the whole coverage done of inquiry and inspection. So once an inquiry and inspection has been done, what next? Can there be further investigation? The answer is yes. When we talk of investigation, friends, there's broad coverage of the word investigation. And as we have just discussed early during the start of the session, the difference between the 3 words. And now here we need certain expert who can do the investigation, some more person who has got experience and in-depth understanding. So when we talk of investigation, because it's again in-depth checking, can it be left to the registrar to do that investigation? The answer is no. So investigation can be initiated by the central government. So there are different investigation sections which we have to cover here. So we have the central government. Then we have the SFIO, a newborn baby. I cannot tell it is a very newborn baby, but yes, in comparison to the other investigative agencies, I think this is a newborn baby. Then it can be done by the tribunal also, again a newborn baby. Then there could be investigation in the ownership of the company. Can the investigation be done to related party companies? The answer is yes, it can be done. And can we do an investigation of a foreign company? The answer is yes, 228. So we'll find now that investigation has again got a broad parameter. So along with inquiry and inspection, we need to study this also. And in terms of questions which have been asked, questions have been asked directly in relation to this. So different questions have been asked on different sections also. So we cannot ignore this. Then there are other minor sections which we can just go through. Few are important, few are just general sections. So let us start the world of investigation. I think these pictures are very important, friends, which will give you an holistic view. So do ensure that you take all these snapshots or have a picture of all these basic understanding of the whole breakup of the section. And then as per the exam, whatever question coming, you can relate it very easily. Now, when do we call for an investigation? I think the difference lies in the gravity, as I mentioned earlier, and the monetary value at times involved. So simple irregularity will not call for investigation. A breach of contract cannot call for investigation. Losses done by the company, cannot call for investigation. If there are losses of the company, the shareholders cannot say, the company is running into losses, therefore we should call for investigation. If there are losses, you can have a very much right to remove all the directors of the company, and that provisions are already there. So that does not warrant for any investigation. But investigation may be generated because of, a lot of issues where there are frauds, intention is bad, malafide. So there could be misstatement in the prospectus. There could be a lot of fraudulent inducement to investments. You see a lot of ads coming out in newspapers, giving you abnormal returns, 24%, 30% return if you do investment in this company, or giving fraudulent information in the prospectus for attracting deposit holders, asking them to deposit money in their company. So there could be a lot of situations. I think if you refer to a lot of cases which have happened, you will come to know and differentiate, yes, which could be particular situations which has necessitated this requirement of investigations. So in general, we can very well say that it all depends upon the gravity of the action, the situation, and then the steps could be taken. So let's start with the first part, 210. Investigation into the affairs of the company. Now, as I said, there is no case of ROC. So please, whenever you read the question, please make it a point to understand that if the question has been asking for ROC, then please refer 206, 207, 208, 209. Automatically, your mind should go to those sections. Registrar, inspector. And whenever the word comes to central government, then 210. Though it can be in 206 also, where the inspection can be done by central government also. But again, we can differentiate that if there is a registrar, it has to be from 206 to 209 only. Okay, so 210, where central government is of the opinion. On the basis of what? Report under section 208. If you can recall that under 208, the registrar will submit a report to the central government after doing an inquiry and inspection under 206, after it is done from 2061 to 2063 or under 2064. He has prepared a report which has been submitted to the central government, and he has mentioned that, that under the report that there could be further investigation which is required. Then the central government, based on the nature of findings, they can call for further action as they deem fit. Now, what is that further action as they deem fit? That is investigation, friends. If you can recall that particular section 208, that further action as the central government may deem fit. So they will call for further investigation into the affairs of the company. Or they can pass a special resolution by the company when a special resolution has been passed. So the conditions of passing a special resolution should be fulfilled. Then the shareholders can ask the central government that please investigate into the affairs of the company. Good. Or the central government is of the opinion on the basis of public interest. And that is a very generic term, public interest. We all know what could be the possible public interest. May order investigation into affairs. Now, friends, there has been a question which has been asked in the exam part, which talks about whether this section is discretionary or mandatory. Now, remember, when the word may comes in, obviously we understand that it has the option to investigate or not. But in general, when an opinion has been formed, obviously it has to be what? Discretionary. Not discretionary, but mandatory. When you have the opinion which has been created that there is something wrong happening. But the question comes in is of forming an opinion. That's a discretionary thing. So you understand that, though the word may is there, but may will be generated only once the opinion has been created. And forming an opinion is discretionary, but I think when the opinion has been created, then they should investigate into the affairs. So if in exam the question comes is whether this particular section is discretionary, the answer is yes. It is discretionary. Just let me check if there are questions raised by the participants. So that is one way that investigation could be done. Now, remember, friends, investigation under 210 will be depending upon two situations. One is obviously, say, CG on suo motu based on obviously these backgrounds, these facts. But if there's an order of the tribunal, if the tribunal has given an order to central government under section 213, so we'll study 213. What is 213 all about? Then shall order. Remember, friends, may order, shall order, investigation. So under two situations, investigation can be done. One is by the central government, suo motu, based on whatever information, complaint, special resolution, and so on, where the group of shareholders come together, they pass a special resolution, submit it to the government, duly authorized, then they may order investigation. Or if the tribunal during any proceeding comes to know of certain facts, then they can order the central government to go for investigation. A lot of people can, complain to the central government frivolously without any intention, just to create moral pressure, mental pressure to the company and to the officers of the company, so they can make a false complaint also. So if the person was submitting the complaint, the government says that please submit 25,000. Right? So they ensure that it is the complaint is not false. But this 25,000 is just a deposit. It will be refunded if the investigation results in prosecution. So that means it was a genuine complaint. So if that happens, fine, then the amount would be refunded. The amount of security will depend upon the turnover of the company also. So that criteria has been given. So just remember it, not necessarily from exam perspective. But anyway, it's part of law. So please do remember that. Good. So 210, a very plain and simple section, friends. Nothing complicated about it. And in exam, you can remember that investigation under two situations. Investigation under two situations by the central government. No registrar is involved in this whole process. Let's take one example for all of you. Okay, so the example is about shareholders of hide and seek are not satisfied about the performance of the company. It is suspected that some activity is being run in the name of the company and not in the interest of the company or its members. 101 out of 500 shareholders have made an application to the central government to appoint an inspector. Whether the shareholders' application will be accepted or not. Right. Now, when this type of case study will come in, people will, get confused. Confused in what sense, friends? Confused in what sense? Confusion will come in because there are some figures given, some certain kind of facts which will make you do some calculation, because the mind will go in such a direction that I need to do some calculation because 101 is mentioned, so it is more than 20%. Now, is there any clause of 20%? Remember, there is no such criteria of number of shareholders. We have not studied about it, right? And we should be very clear that when it can be done. 208, not mentioned. Public interest, not mentioned. SR by company, yes. So we know that it's a case filed by the company itself, where the shareholders members are coming. So special resolution has to be submitted. Through a special resolution, the application may be given. Now here there is no such mention of SR. There is no question of SR here mentioned out. So friends, if there is no special resolution which has been mentioned, so the application could be rejected, will be rejected, not could be, but will be rejected because no special resolution has been attached. So as I told you, don't get confused with this numbers part, but if you are thorough with your provision part, which is very clear, right? As I mentioned that things are very simple out here, so no complications as such in remembering also. Notice was sent to Mr. L by the registrar. Now remember, the word is registrar. To furnish the information related to business transacted during his tenure. Mr. L ignored the notice on the assumption that he is no more an employee. Good. Choose the right option in the light of Companies Act. Is liable to provide such information. Officer in place of liable is liable to provide. Company is liable to provide such information. None of the above. We have seen that under section 206, the registrar can give a written notice to the past officers also. So notice was sent. He was sent a notice. He should provide that information because that transaction is applied during his tenure, friends. During his tenure. So Mr. L is liable to provide certain information. Central government may order an investigation. 210. Right? Investigation 210. Forget about 206 to 209. So now, in certain circumstances, good, we know the circumstances 3. Except, that means we need to find out the odd man out. Because we know 3, 4 question answers are there. We need to identify the odd man out. Report, good. SR, good. Board resolution, I think we have not discussed. BR, we have discussed SR. Public interest is always a common thing, so we don't need to discuss on that. So C is the correct choice. Yahi hai right choice. C is the correct answer, right? So 210 is done, friends. SFIO, serious fraud investigation. Serious fraud investigation. Now, as the word is suggesting, friends, it is serious. So when the word serious comes in, friends, that means obviously we are trying to relate it here with respect to certain frauds which are higher in monetary value, or where the people involved are many, or the person committing a fraud is of high stature, or the possible impact could be within relation to the national interest. So these could be the examples of serious fraud. Serious fraud. And for that, an office has been established that is known as SFIO. This SFIO shall be headed by a director, and it will consist of a lot of experts from different fields who have got the ability to do this particular fraud investigation. And it will include whom? Cyber forensics friends. Big scope, yes. As a forensic auditor, financial accounting expert, management accounting expert, cost accounting expert. That means they will take the support of chartered accountants, company secretaries, cost accountants, forensic auditors to discharge the functions under this act. And they have been actually taking the services of various professionals to carry out this particular activities under this section, and along with that rules. And there's a lot of professional opportunity coming in this particular agency. You know, it's not only about SFIO, it's also CBIA also, you know, takes the services of chartered accountants, especially in financial frauds. Now, SFIO is specifically directed towards companies. So by default, they have to take the services of chartered accountant because it involves frauds only, financial frauds. That is why this section is very important, and as such, we know the number of frauds which have increased considerably over a period of time, and we as professionals should explore these possible areas and catch this opportunity. You know, I'm just telling on the irony part. See the irony part and fraud, and we have an opportunity, right? That's an irony. Though we should be, you should try to ensure that fraud does not happen, but the world is a different place. So investigations by SFIO. So investigation first by central government. Second, investigation by SFIO. When I think, see, there's no such difference between 210 and 212, except the agency part has gone. There, the central government is doing the investigation, obviously through some representative, the officer part, maybe the regional director part, that investigation could be done. Here, the agency is something, the agency is different. So, with the central government thinks that, you know, the investigation has to be done by SFIO, which has got a specialized forte, then may by order assigns its investigation to SFIO. When again, so same, the reason same, with an additional request from Department of Central Government of State Government. That means any particular department of central government. So it may be the Ministry of Finance coming out and saying that, you know, we need to have an investigation, or from any other department, which things maybe from the CBDT part or the GST part, though they are part of the Ministry of Finance only. But, you know, anywhere, different department can give a request, or even from the state government also, that it is necessary, then they may order an investigation. So three things are common as per 210. So at least our effort is going down out here, that we don't need to make that much effort, because the conditions are same except +1, 210 plus 1, 210 plus 1. Then the central government may by order assign the investigation into the affairs of the said company to SFIO. Good, fine, they have done it. What next? So the next part is that, you know, the other agencies who have been involved with investigations with respect to this company, either they shall not initiate any investigation, or if they have already initiated, they will stop. Let's say, so we have other agencies under the RBI Act or CBI or something like that. If they are carrying on any other investigations, probably that will come to a halt till this investigation is over. So that superseding powers have been given to SFIO. Good. So if you just Google out cases under SFIO, and you'll be surprised to come out with names of such prominent nature, and not giving examples of what has happened right from Satyam world, but then recently a lot of cases, including the world of Jet Airways, including the world of Bhushan Steels, the Carvi part, the ILFS part. You must have read or heard somewhere of all these big companies where there are a lot of issues regarding fund diversions, default of loan, and all these companies have come under the scanner of SFIO. And when you search, you'll find a lot of reasons, a lot of complaints being filed against the company, and therefore this action has been taken. So just Google it out and you'll see a whole lot of companies coming under this particular agency, and the investigations are still on for a few of the companies. Some have been concluded, somewhere the actions have been taken. But yes, there's a tough job with this agency, and it works night out, whole day in and out, just to ensure that they complete the work. But then it's due to a lot of compulsions, a lot of times the work gets hampered also. Okay, so this is important part, friends. When it can be initiated? I think that's very clear, that when it can be initiated. Now, what is going to happen, friends? What is going to happen that we need to know? So once the investigation is done, completed, report will be given to CG. So everything here under this inquiry part and investigation part, you come to know that the SFI is going to submit a report to the CG. And because SFI has got a lot of power, so we need to understand the whole process also. The company, the officer, the employees to provide all the information document as required by SFI. That's very natural. That is going to happen in every law, even other section we have seen. But because this is a serious fraud investigation office, so certain things are given extra in terms of power. The power is that if there is an offense which has been recognized under section 447, which has been covered under 447, it shall be cognizable. And we all understand the meaning of this cognizable word because it is quite common, non-bailable, and you will not be granted bail. That is the tough part, that you will not be granted bail. And no person shall be released on bail or on his own bond, unless, even if you are willing to give a bond, then you will not be allowed to do that, unless an opportunity to public prosecutor to oppose has been given. Now, remember, it's not necessary that cognizable means that they cannot be bailed out. There are provisions under the Act that there could be a bail can be given. But then before that, an opportunity to the public prosecutor, which we all understand, has to be given to oppose. And if the court is satisfied that reasonable ground exists to prove that person is not guilty, the bail may be granted. Not much of relevance, but yes, because it is given out here, we need to remember that. The special court shall not take into cognizance except on complaint filed by the special court, which has been, as we have discussed, that special court will not take into cognizance of all this default unless the complaint has been filed by Director SFIO or any other authorized person, agency by the central government. So then the special court will come into picture. Because this is an investigating agency, the powers of the director of SFIO is much higher than the registrar and so on. So they have been given the powers to arrest any person who has been guilty of offense under 447. Now, friends, remember, this 447 is now creating a very good base out here under all these provisions, because in a lot of sections we have seen this 447 being invoked. So please remember this 447, as I said, very important, and though it can be covered, it will be covered by the respective faculties. Then once their arrest has been done, it will be taken to judicial magistrate within 24 hours and so on. Then the legal process will start. He will be taken into judicial custody, then police custody, or he'll be put into the bars also. And there are a lot of issues where you are under police custody, where you are under judicial custody. We need to follow with the various laws, and we need to understand what is going to happen if you're under a police custody or when you are put into a jail. What can happen to you? These are all legal issues. Do not covering out here. Um, then the SA5, as I said, will give a report of investigation to the central government, and on such report, the central government may direct to initiate prosecution against all the people who have been found guilty. So process is very simple, and I think very logical also. That investigation, when can it be invoked? Then certain powers, extra powers with respect to cognizable offense, because these are serious frauds. Power to arrest also in case 447. Then bringing into the judicial magistrate, not relevant. But yes, report will be submitted to central government, on which basis the central government may direct to initiate the prosecution against all the people who have been guilty. The last part before we break is there are certain exception given, that who can be released on bail. And the person who is under 16 years of age, for whatever reason, he has been found guilty. If she's a woman, that person, and we all know there are a lot of laws now. The law calls for a woman director and so on. Sick or infirm. Infirm means mentally not fit, something like that. So a person of such nature, then they can be released on bail. Remember, special direction of special court, on direction of special court. Very important. Only then you can be released, because there are a few questions which have been asked from this perspective, that when a person can be released on bail. So remember this point, under specific situation. So this covers our whole perspective on investigation 210 and 212. Very important, covering the various aspects along with the questions. So we take a small 10-minute break and then rejoin and complete this whole session. Yes, sir. Jason? Yes, sir. Okay. Okay, so we had covered 210 and 212, friends, where we had discussed about the investigation part. Now things are more clearer. Now picture is more clear now that what is involved in this chapter. So let us go through a few of the questions. Mrs. P, a lady aged about 32 years and MD of Grow More Trees Limited, has been arrested for an offense covered under 447. So that means non-bailable. Arrest has been done on a complaint made by a director of SFIO. So we have seen the provision that the director, can he arrest any person? Yes, it is given at 212 whether the director can arrest. The answer is yes, he can arrest, and he will be produced in front of the judicial magistrate and then taken to the custody. Mrs. P seeks your legal advice as to conditions under which she can be released on bail and the role of special court in this regard. I think the question is very clear that we have to take the permission of special court, and then thereafter it can be released as per the provision that it can be given for 16 years woman and a sick or infirm person. So as per 212, I think we need to mention all the relevant laws where the offences covered under 447 shall be cognizable and shall be released or shall not be released only when this public prosecutor has been given an opportunity and where the court has been satisfied that reasonable grounds exist that is not guilty. But under these specific situation, the special court can give an release order. So 210, 212 done. Let's take up the investigation in other cases by tribunal. Now that's, as I said, 210 and 212 more or less fall in the same parameters of the conditions, except SFIO has got certain extra provisions regarding the arrest part and the custody part that we have already studied. But here, when can tribunal order investigation? That is again a different scenario. So we have segregated into two parts where an application will be made by people. Then tribunal obviously after going through the process can order an investigation. So when situation 1, a company having a share capital, situation 2, company not having a share capital. Not going to discussions of company having share capital and no share capital, that you can obviously cover in different topic. But if the company is having a share capital having 1/10 of voting power or at least 100 members, they give an application to NCLT. Or no share capital, then 1/5 of the members will give an application to NCLT along with necessary evidence. And it's very important, along with necessary evidence to support investigation to tribunal. So application has been to be given to tribunal. 213, remember, by tribunal. So they need to give an additional evidence that investigation is necessary by the members of company having share capital or no share capital. But can other person give also an application? The answer is yes, by other person. It can be creditors or otherwise also. It has been mentioned on application by other person or otherwise. Now, what does otherwise mean? Probably suo motu. Now, when will suo motu NCLT, suddenly give an order for investigation? From nowhere it will come into mind that the company is engaged into certain kind of irregular activities, not in line with the company law. But probably because during the course of any proceeding of any other case, it may come to, it may have certain kind of information, which may again necessitate the requirement of ordering an investigation, then probably it can do so. That is why this particular otherwise has been given, because or otherwise is like a very open thing. So an application by other person or otherwise suggesting that when the business of the company is being conducted to do fraud creditors or for fraudulent activities. So these are 3 reasons, friends. Remember, exam question. When can an application be moved by creditors under 213 for investigation. When the person concerned in formation or management have been guilty of fraud or misfeasance, lack of trust, that means there are companies which have been fraud, especially created only because of the purpose of having involved into fraudulent activities, only for the purpose of creating mistrust. You have seen a lot of companies where they have come out with schemes of plantation. The basic objective of formation of such companies was just to collect money and then run away. Then inadequate information to members are been given. For example, one reference has been given, including calculation of managerial remuneration. Recall KMP, various sections of KMP. So, in these three scenarios, an application can be made asking the tribunal to give an order for starting investigation. So after reasonable opportunity is given, the tribunal can issue direction to central government to investigate. Then central government shall appoint one or more person for investigation part. So in exam perspective, I think the conditions when NCLT can be given, remember that. Now once NCLT gives an order for investigation to central government, then 210 and 212. If it is of serious nature, they can refer it 212. If it's general nature, 210 can be invoked. So if the NCLT gives the order and the punishment is proved, where we have seen that the business is being performed for conducted with intent to defraud its creditors, or it has been formed for fraudulent or unlawful purpose, then 447. See, remember, whenever the word fraud comes in 447, directly take them to 447. No here, no there, directly 447 will be invoked. So under 213, there is a punishment. Is there any punishment in 212? We have seen that there is a punishment. 447 again, serious fraud. 210. There is no such punishment, but yes, it can result in prosecution as per section 222. That means under 210, whatever is the end result, that is subject to whatever has been mentioned in other section. But under 212 and 213, if the fraud is proved, then 447 is invoked. So three major sections we have covered, friends. Three major sections have been covered for investigation part. Now we are moving on to some small sections, small provisions under this particular chapter, where it will focus on particular area. As we have seen that there could be a lot of complaints which may be frivolous in nature, and therefore there is a provision under this act for providing of security for payment of cost, and this is purely for investigation purpose. One we have seen under for inquiry part, that is for separate from 206 to 209. They inquire, the cost will be based on the turnover of the company, and here it is only for the investigation part. So where an investigation is ordered, then the applicant may be required to pay 25,000. Fine. So majority of the board of directors of high value infotech have realized that some of the business activities are being carried out in the name of a company are not in the interest of either company or its members. They want that the company should make an application to the NCLT to appoint an inspector to carry out the investigation. So the company should make an application to NCLT. So they want to make an application to NCLT and find out the whole truth. Explain the steps which could be taken. So friends, as the word NCLT comes in, 213. And 210 for investigation. So 213, an application will be made. So application, when the application is made and the order is passed, then the order will be given direction to the central government. Then the central government will start the investigation. And application can be made by, we know, if the company is having a share capital, not share capital, and by the creditors also. So here, the majority of the board of directors, so what they will do, they need to call a meeting where 1/10 of the voting power will give an approval for an application. So the board of directors have to call an EGM, and once the EGM is called, the resolution will be passed by the requisite percentage of voting. Then once the resolution is passed, then application will be made, and application will be made under section 210 to NCLT, and the NCLT on section 213, and after 213, the NCLT may give order to the central government, and then after that the investigation will start. So it was a question with respect to 213. So remember, board of directors directly cannot do that. They have to call a meeting of the members. Until the resolution is passed by the members, it cannot happen. 215, a relatively small section, but maybe relevant for MCQ, where it says that fine, and it cannot happen. Inspector has to be an individual. No firm, body, corporate, or other association shall be appointed as an inspector. Another very important part is investigation on the ownership of the company, especially by central government. So again, as I mentioned, all investigations by central government and subject to organ in specific situation, order of NCLT. Now, when you talk of ownership of the company, we have seen many cases, right from the smallest of the company to biggest of the company, where we have seen that the question of unveiling the corporate identity has been questioned and unveiled, where the actual owner is somebody else. And we have seen that the investments are being done through a lot of layers of the company, which are layers of investment through various companies, which are created only for the purpose of hiding that who is the actual owner of a particular company. And I cannot single out any particular case, but then there are a host of cases which are being under investigation to find out the actual ownership. And that is why you can see the provision of section, I think 89 and 90, which talks about beneficial ownership. So to find out who is the actual owner of the company, this particular section has been introduced, 216, where powers are given to the central government. So when can the central government go and find out who is the actual owner of the company? So by suo motu, when suo motu, they find it appears a reason to do so because of various findings, various information from various levels they have got, especially in the current environment when you see that in income tax return, we have to disclose certain kind of investments. Along with that, there are returns which are filed at ROC regarding the ownership. Along with that, we have the beneficial ownership forms which are submitted on a regular basis. So when you have so much of information coming from different angles and with a common link of PAN number, I think it is very easy for one to identify where is your investment lying in which company, and then that company is investing where, and that investment has gone where, and subsequently reaching to the main company or to the main owner. So suo motu, when the government has a lot of information, or during any proceeding, the NCLT order wants to do an investigation on the ownership of the company, it may do so to find out who is the actual owner. So remember, beneficial ownership, under two situations this can happen. For what purpose this investigation will be done? For what purpose the investigation will be done, friends? The purpose is very clear: for determining a true person. Who is the true person behind this company? Now, who is a true person? Normally, though there's no such definition or the word of true person, but then it has been mentioned that who or have been financially interested in success, failure, whether real or apparent, in the company. So that means who have been financially interested in the success of the company or the failure of the company, which is actually real or which looks as being created. That can be also a purpose. So a lot of time fictitious profits, fictitious losses are also shown, and just to hide the actual financial interest of a particular person, or who have or had beneficial interest in the shares of the company, or have been the beneficial owners of the company. That is as per section 89 and 90. So that means we need to identify the true person. That is why this investigation has been done. And if you just search out, Google out, I think there are a lot of cases, especially involving the big people, especially involving a lot of leaders, political leaders at times also. Their companies are questioned about who are the beneficial owners of this particular company. So what is the action to be taken by central government if they want to identify the true person, who is the actual owner? So they can appoint an inspector. Once the inspector is appointed, the scope, the tenure, till what period he can look for the ownership part, the matter to be covered, or which particular area has to be taken care, or any specific shares has to be taken into account when you have to determine the ownership also. While doing so, the inspector has to have a broader perspective, broader reach. Why broader reach? Because when he's investigating, he has to do an investigation, because as we said that there are different layers of the company which comes in, different layers of the investment comes in, and that comes through different small companies. So if he has to investigate in other matters also, then he should be given powers to investigate into other matters if required. So that is why this particular provision has been given, 216(4), powers of investor wide to investigate other matters if required. Now, what may happen, when the investigation is on for understanding the beneficial ownership, it may happen that to avoid or to actually find out, there could be a lot of complicated transfer of shares which can happen. And to stop that transfer of shares, the NCLT can impose certain restrictions upon certain class of securities up to 3 years. Very important. Remember this point. Up to 3 years, this whole restrictions can apply, where the restrictions can be in relation to transfer of shares, that you cannot transfer shares for a particular time period. And if you do that, then you will be subject to default and punishment of fine and imprisonment under section, I think we can refer to section 222, which we are going to discuss, where the penal consequences have been given. Now, as I said, because a lot of investments come from foreign also, and to understand the owner of those companies which are foreign companies, so that a proper correlation could be established. Therefore, this provision of investigation of ownership also applies to foreign companies, because as we know that a lot of investments are done through foreign company. So that is why this provision was required. So that was all about investigation, friends. 210, 212, 213, and 216. So we have covered 4 parts of investigation. That means inquiry, inspection, and investigation is broadly covered now, except for one section which is going to come again. Now, there could be a situation where, during investigation, we know that we will inquire a lot of people, will question people, will call the people, and the employees of the company may be afraid of giving any information, and they may be afraid of losing the job also, because if they disclose all the information, then they'll be subject to a lot of pressures. And therefore, if you are able to recall, there's a whistleblower policy which was introduced a few years back, and which has been quite useful in bigger companies where a lot of information are disclosed during this whistleblower policy. And somebody comes up and discloses a lot of intrinsic details of the company, which are very alarming. So how to protect those employees who are obviously supporting this process, but at times they are subject to a lot of risk. So 218 gives them that certain kind of protection where under 2 situations, either during any investigation of the affairs of the company, or either the body corporate or any person under 210, 212, 213 we have seen, or any member under 216. We have just studied 216, friends. Remember 216, beneficial ownership, right? Or section 219, which we are going to study now. So whenever the investigation is going on under different 5 sections, or during any other proceedings. So the NCLT may be taking, the proceedings may be going on to NCLT, and some inquiry is also going on, inspection is going on. Then any such company, body, corporate, person proposed to discharge or suspend any employee, if they want to discharge or suspend an employee, punish him by way of dismissal, change the term of his employees to his disadvantage so that he resigns, then in all the 3 actions, if they want to do it, prior approval of tribunal is required. So that's the protection which has been granted, that you need to apply to the tribunal. That means prior approval, that means you need to apply to the tribunal, say that, I want to suspend him. My company is under investigation under 210, but then because of such reason, I want to suspend it. Please give me the permission. Fine. So tribunal is what is going to do. Either it will raise its objection by post, saying that you cannot remove it. I'll not remove it. But if within 30 days, there's no objection which is being received from the tribunal, then we can go ahead, the company can go ahead and remove that particular person. And if you are dissatisfied with the objection of the tribunal, if the tribunal has given some raised some of the objection, you can very well go to NCLAT and file an appeal. So that provision is already there. So very important, friends, this protection, which really gives us the certain kind of confidence to all the employees to support this whole process of inquiry, inspection, and investigation, which is very much required. So let's answer this question, friends. This tells us that an inspector who was appointed at 210 investigation, public company, Mr. WM works manager of the company who is aware of certain misdeeds of the management, desires to know whether he is entitled to any protection against dismissal by the company if he discloses the misdeeds during the course of examination by the inspector. So 218, we need to tell him, don't worry, friend, 218 is there. And within 218, 210 is covered. Or any other proceedings is also covered. So it's a very wide coverage, not a problem. So nothing specific that you have to mention. You have to remember all these sections because it has got a lot of wide coverage. And it's mentioned that during the pendency of any proceedings, if the company is proposing to discharge you or so on, then a permission has to be required. So the only thing which needs to be taken care of, that the tribunal should raise an objection within 30 days. That's it. Remember that? Tribunal should raise an objection. That's important. So if an application is made by the company to the NCLT, so if you are the person who is being affected by that particular decision, please tell the tribunal, go to the tribunal and say that this is not as per what is required, and then the tribunal will raise an objection towards the action. Okay. Another question on similar patterns. So a company wanted to suspend Mr. Z, the CFO of the company, during the pendency of an investigation being conducted under the provision of Companies Act. The company approached the tribunal on 3rd January. And company on 15th February. Without waiting for orders. So we all know that within 30 days, the objection has to be raised. Within 30 days, the objection has to be raised. So has the objection been received by the company within 30 days? No. Can the company pass an order of suspension? No objection. Can the company pass? Yes. Suspension can be done. Very easily, suspension can be done because 30 days have passed by. So that's the important criteria, friends. Remember, objection within 30 days. So coming back to another investigation. Now, if you see the investigation part, that means covered? Yes. Covered? Yes. Both conditions, same. Covered? Yes. Under specific situation, remember, share capital, no share capital, or otherwise by creditors, they can apply. Ownership, when, remember, suo motu or by order of tribunal, CG, CG, CG. So 4 part, which is purely for investigation, which we have already seen. Now 219. 5 major sections, remember, for investigation part. Investigation into affairs of related companies. Very much required. Again, this power has to be given. Otherwise, how can we have a holistic inquiry, investigation? So under, again, going back to the whole part 212, 210, 212, 213, if he feels that investigation is required of any other body corporate which has been subsidiary or subsidiary of its holding company, any other body corporate which is being managed by MD, manager of company, under investigation. Any other body corporate accustomed to act as per instruction of director of such company, under investigation. Or we can do an investigation of any person which has been MD, manager of employee of such company. That means all related parties, KMPs, will fall under this category, and they will be always be subject to investigation. So along with the main company, we can take the subsidiary of the company. We can take any other body corporate where It is being managed by the MD. Now, how do you see managed? We can always see the documents to find out whether the management is done by the same MD or not. Or they can work under the instructions of the director. Remember, beneficial ownership is also one such criteria where you can prove that they are accustomed to act as per the instruction of a director. He may not be director in that company or any other person. But remember, friends, all these investigations will require prior approval of CG. Very important, prior approval of CG. चलिए, तो let us see this question. During investigation conducted of the affairs of company public interest, the inspector observed the directors had been acting in constructions of the holding company and he proceeded to investigate the holding company. Is inspector permitted? So, as per law, it has been mentioned that investigate the affairs of any other body corporate which is or has at any relevant time been the company's subsidiary company or holding company or a subsidiary company of its holding company. So, is it possible? The answer is yes, it is possible. Because as per law, any holding company, any subsidiary company or a subsidiary company of the holding company will fall under this particular category and we can investigate. So 219 purely gives you the right to go right or go left, both ways. So right to go right and left. So we come to the final part of this particular, whole holistic part of inquiry inspection, covering the miscellaneous aspects. Seizure of documents by the inspector, though we have already seen that the documents could be seized by the inspector. But again, further, it is covering the investigation part. The previous part was covering the inquiry part. Remember 209. So 220 talks about, again, seizure of documents. Then he can, inspect, seize, keep the books with them till the completion of investigation. Oh, right. So you understand the difference here? Till the completion of investigation. Previous case, it was under 209, 180 plus extension. Here, till the investigation is completed. Now, the difficult part is there a time frame for completion of investigation? The answer is no. There is no such specific time frame which is given for completion. And as I said, there has to be a time frame. So 220 will talk about seizure of documents. So very similar, same way as 209, remember, except for the tenure part. So time to freeze. Freeze what? Now, as we understand that investigation is an in-depth inquiry, in-depth checking, and where we need to seize also and freeze also. Freeze what? Freeze is what? Statue movement. Freeze movement. Movement of what? What can be moved? So the assets could be moved. Yes, friends, they can be moved. So we need to freeze the movement of assets also. So that's why this section 221 is required. While in inquiry, it is not required because the business has to keep on going. Here we can say, please stop the business. we need to freeze the assets. So when the assets can be freezed by tribunal, remember, so the order can be given only by tribunal. Very important, because again, it will relate to the going concern being questioned. That is why this is necessary, that we need to have an order by tribunal. When it can be done? On reference by central government, agreed. By a complaint by number of members as prescribed under 244. 244 relates to operation and mismanagement. So you can refer to the number of criteria which is required under 244. Then the same number will be required here also. Creditors having complaint by creditors having outstanding of 1 lakh or more. Banks, even the financial and the operational creditors, they can talk about freezing of the assets, but only when the investigations are on. Further, in addition, complaint may also be lodged by any other person. Any other person, friends. So beyond this, if any person, that is including employees, which gives us the reason that any removal of such action which is prejudicial to the interest of the company shareholders and so on, then no such transfer can be made up to 3 years. No such transfer can be made up to 3 years. So freezing of asset and seizure of assets, very important. Freezing of assets and seizure of assets. Any contravention? Any contravention? Yes, a lot of contravention can come in because you're talking about freezing of assets. Then if it is by the company, then minimum, maximum, minimum, maximum, minimum, maximum. Remember, officer in default, imprisonment up to 3 years. Imprisonment up to 3 years. Minimum 50, maximum 5. Minimum 50, maximum 5. Or both. Or both, friends. Quite tough, quite tough. Again, along with the freezing of assets, there are situations where we have seen that securities may be transferred, the shares may be transferred, especially with respect to 216, especially with respect to 216, beneficial ownership, 216, right? Where it appears to the tribunal, that in connection to investigation under 216 or on a complaint made by any person, that facts about the securities have to be obtained. Now, any security, remember, it's not only about shares, it could be about bonds, debentures also. The facts, basically, it means that who was the original owner, subsequent owner, when was it issued, what price was it issued, when was it transferred, whether transfer was recorded or not, and then who is the person, who is the relative of that person, then who is the, if it is a owner is the company, then who is the director of that company, who are the shareholders of that company, and so on. So all these facts could be only obtained when the particular security remains stable. If it keeps on continuously moving from one place to another, then it's difficult to track the actual ownership. So in that case, in the opinion of tribunal, if you want to find out the facts, restrictions have to be imposed. we need to restrict the movement of securities. Remember, that was the restriction freezing on the asset part. So asset part basically means the plant and machinery or any other inventory or something like that. Here it is especially talking on the restriction of the securities part, the shares part, the share capital part also. Then the period of restriction is 3 years. Period of restriction is how many years? 3 years. I think that was same restrictions as on in 216 also. So same way here again, 222, which further is corroborating, further, adding on to the fact which has been mentioned in 216. So supplementing whatever is written in the section 216. So restrictions on the movement of security. So any contravention, just trying to compare the two contravention, 125, 125, fine. 3, 6, bit of relaxation. 55, 25, 5. Both. So a bit of relaxed situation for movement of securities. For what reason it is being relaxed? Difficult to always judge that what vision they have created for keeping the penal consequences a bit low, because it is not having the impact on the business part. So maybe for that reason, but freezing of asset has an impact on the business part. That's why. Okay, here we go with another question on 216, which there talks about a company over the years enjoys a high reputation. There's a serious apprehension of cornering the share of a company by a group of unscrupulous persons like to result in the change of the board of directors, which may be prejudicial to the public interest. The company seeks to your advice to how it can block the transfer of shares of company. Now, very important. That's a very practical scenario, friends, which may arise where you see a good company which has been running for so many years, and suddenly, if the company is listed, you find that shares are being, being cornered. That means held, are being purchased by a group of person who looks different people, but then they may be the same person. There may be one single person, but on the face it looks there are different people. And if finally if you have a group of people who is controlled by one person, then he change the board, the structure of the board, and so on. And that is where the board wants to have your advice whether we can stop those transfer of shares taking place between the different shareholders and those selected group of people. So the option is you go to 222 where you can file a complaint to restrict the movement of shares. To restrict the movement of shares, the transfer of shares, and because it is prejudicial to the interest of the company, therefore it can be done. So a very practical scenario, I think very well covered, and I think 222 has been envisaged looking to one of these situations. Obviously, 222 is more in conjunction with 216, which talks about the beneficial ownership, and 216 is only on the investigation part. But here, the matter does not arises from the investigation part, but the matter is only because of there's a in relation to cornering of shares. Yes, inspector's report 223, which we have seen that report has to be given. Finally, if the investigation is done, then the report will be given. You can give an interim report also till the time the final report is being prepared, only when the central government says that, because there's a lot of time. We cannot waste time on the final report. We can't wait. We need certain basic inputs from your end. So please give an interim report. So then in that case, the inspector may give an interim report on all the investigations done. Or finally, he will give the final report. So once the report is given, then subsequent action can be taken, and the majority of the action is obviously for filing of cases against the company. That is where the main action lies in. So on the basis of report, whatever report has been submitted in 223, you find that the person appears to be guilty of offense, then government may prosecute such person. Right? That is the first thing. The prosecution may start under 224. Prosecution may start. Then if they think that as per section 223, the corporate is liable to be wound up, then the application will be made to the tribunal for winding up, or an application under section 241, which we will be covering in the next different chapter, or it can be both. So if the report says that prosecution will happen, then the report says that the winding up has to take place, then the petition will be filed for winding up. Third scenario may call for certain situations where there's a recovery of damages, or for the recovery of any property. For doing so, when you want to recover the damages, or when you want to recover any property which has been misapplied or wrongfully retained by the company, so if in doing so, if winding up is required, then the winding up will start. So this is central government suo motu will initiate the winding up proceedings where it feels that there is a requirement of recovery of damages which has been caused for any fraud or misfeasance, or where the formation of the company has been for the different management, the formation has been company for fraudulent purpose, or where the recovery of any property has been misapplied or wrongfully retained, then this particular section could be invoked. And finally, where fraud has been committed, where the report mentions that fraud has been committed and any particular person has taken an undue advantage of the same, the central government may file an application with regard to disgorgement. As I said, as a person has taken undue advantage, disgorgement of such asset, property or cash, which has been generated because of undue advantage or benefit. So we can call back all these assets, property or cash, and the individuals holding such director, KMP, officer, or other person liable personally without any limitation of liability. Without any limitation of liability, friends. Very important. So a 223 report is a very important report. 223 report has been a very important report because 224 is invoked on the basis of 223. And 224 has got a lot of penal consequences, prosecution stages under various scenarios. So from exam perspective, I think there could be only one direct question which can come in. Direct question which can come in is with respect to that what are the consequences of section 223 report or actions which can be taken based on the inspector's report. So please do remember all these four things directly. You don't need to go into case-based much of scenario, but a direct question can be asked. Yes, the other relevant provisions are not much important. This is again 228, which talks about investigation on foreign company. So whatever provision which we have studied, they also apply to foreign company. So remember, in an exam, if the question starts a foreign company, so don't get confused, friends. Don't get confused that if it is a foreign company, I don't need to, it will not be covered. But in fact, under section 228, it will be covered and all the provisions will apply mutatis mutandis. So friends, we have broadly covered all the major sections, right from inspection, investigation, and other important few provisions, especially 224, 223, 221, 222, and so on. Yes, 226, finally, one more, which if the company has been, if the application has been made to tribunal for relief in cases of Operation 241, then if there's a company which has been going on under voluntary wind up under IBC, or if the winding up is under 271 and so on, then it should not be like that the investigations cannot happen. So investigations will go on even if the company falls under these three categories. Remember. So the whole premise is that whatever kind of state of the company may be, the investigations can keep on happening. It does not matter whether it's a company, a foreign company or not, it does not matter. So the whole section of 226 to 228 says that carry on the investigations. So if in exam the question comes in that a company is under winding up and so on, no confusions. I think very clear. Investigations, yes means yes. Let's answer a few of the MCQs out here, and then we'll be able to, then we'll have an understanding of whatever you have studied today, and then we'll conclude, right? But here we go, and let's see. So offenses covered under 447 are cognizable, and no person accused of such offense shall be released on bail. However, in the direction of special code, following person shall be released on bail. Under age 16, yes. Woman, yes. Sick or infirm person, yes. Any one of the above. The correct answer is any one of the above. Which of the following person can be appointed as inspector under 215? So answer is who? So the answer is individual. Individual can be appointed as an inspector. So a meeting of members was convened under the order of tribunal to consider scheme of compromise. Sorry, not tribunal. If any director or officer of the company disobeys the direction by registrar under section 217, remember, the director or officer shall be punishable with what? So remember, we have seen the clause, and maximum is again 1 lakh, minimum 25,000 with imprisonment of 1 year. So answer is both A and B. The expenses of an incidental to an investigation by an inspector appointed by the central government under Chapter 14 of the Companies Act, other than expenses of inspection under Section 241, shall be defrayed in the first instance by whom? So I think there's nowhere mention of this. So central government. 221 punishment in case of any removal, transfer of shares. 221 punishment. Remember 221. There was subsequent punishment 221, 222, and there were a bit of lot of confusion was there. So just going to recall on the punishment part. 25 lakhs is the upper amount. 1 lakh. Remember, two categories, company and officer in default. Two categories always, company and officer in default. Company and officer in default. Two categories. So this is same always in both the cases. So whether 221, 222, and the company shall be punishable with what? 25, 1 lakh, 25, 5 lakh, 1 lakh, 25 lakh, 1 lakh, 25 lakh. The dash shall by notification establish an office to be called SFIO. Obviously, establishing SFIO lies only with one central government. No doubts about it. During investigations conducted on affairs of a company in public interest, the inspector observed that the directors of the company had been acting on the instructions of the holding company. And he proceeded to investigate the holding company. Is permitted, allowed? Yes, we have seen that. We have already seen a case study on this. So he is obviously allowed. But then for doing so for related company, he has to take an approval from where? Again, remember, prior approval from where? So going back to 219, friends, very important, we need to refer, prior approval of central government. Prior approval of whom? The central government is required. So prior approval from central government. So majority of board of directors of Vaccine Info have realized that some of the business activities carried out in the name of company is not in the interest of the company. Then what they need to do is to pass a special resolution. Yes. And then they can apply to the central government. So it has to be both A and B. A and B, both A and B. Central government, before appointing an inspector and 210, 213 require an applicant to give such security. And we have seen the amount of security for the payment of cost and expenses that will not exceed what? How much? 25,000. That's a standard answer. I think in the inquiry part also it was the amount was 25,000. Yes, as per section 221, remember 221, 222, freeze of asset. One is search, seizure, freeze of asset, and transfer of shares. Three parts, remember, where restrictions can be imposed. So 221 is about freezing of asset. That means you cannot dispose of the asset, properties, and so on. So what it can do, it can direct for restriction of such removal for how many period? That's more important. For how long it can be stopped? The answer is 3 years. This is already covered. I think we have seen multiple questions on the same pattern, so not to be repeated again. Yes, again, the same pattern. Remember, where if you want to find out the true membership of a company, and for that, tribunal needs to stop the transfer of shares. It can do so for the stopping of transfer of share for till what time period? The answer is till 3 years. Yes, friends, so till 3 years. So a report has been prepared by the inspector and the report shall be in writing or printed as the central government may direct. But the copy of report can the copy of report be taken? The answer is yes. The copy of report can be taken by whom? By the members, the creators, or any other person whose interest is likely to be affected. By who? By how? By making an application to the central government. Remember, by making an application to the central government, they can take a copy of the report because their interest is getting affected. Where it appears to the CG that the reason to do so, it may appoint one or more inspectors to investigate and report on matters relating to the company and its membership for the purpose of determining 2%, friends. 2%. I hope you are able to recall the word 2%. And the purpose was to find out who have been financially interested, who are having a control or material influence, or who are the beneficial interest in the shares or beneficial owners. So that means it can be any one of the case. So any one of the above. To SFI submit the investigation report to whom? Right? No doubt about it. Okay, so just let me check about any questions which have been asked, any query, so that I can take up that query. Oh, yes. Yes, Mr. J, I think you have raised one query where you have asked whether day-to-day operations. The answer is yes. There could be a possibility that the assets are of material nature, which relates to plant, machinery, inventory, then the day-to-day operations will be freezed. That case possible. But the purpose is different. As in IBC, the purpose is different. Here, the purpose is different. Here, the purpose was that there could be fraud situations. So that is why it was required. Investigation by tribunal versus by CG versus SFI, primary difference. Jay, the primary difference between investigation by tribunal, I think we have mentioned the reason that why under SFI and CG, 3 cases. If you see the investigation, there are 3 scenarios for investigation by central government and SFIO. By tribunal, again, the scenario is different. So if you read the reasons why the investigations could be done, I think reasons for CG and SFIO primarily remain same, except in SFIO, there is one more reason that request of by any department of central government or state government could be done, which is not there under 210. But under 213, it is done by members having a share capital, company having a share capital, company not having a share capital, or others also. So that is different. Yes, Dave, Mr. I think in public interest investigation can be ordered. Yes, not a problem. It can be done. Okay, Dranush has answered to the. Okay, Jay, I'm sorry if I have not been able to provide the last session PPT. I'll do that. I'll send a mail to the ICAI. I'll do that. Yes, Shubha, I'll definitely share it. I'm sorry if I've not received it. I'll do that. Sumit, I am helpless about it, but that is how this class is all about. Ambika has answered few of the questions. I'm sorry I did not look at the question which you are answering. Yes, Niman Chande, you are right. Harshad, if these are things which are applied to old course, I think why not? If these sections are covered in the old course, it should apply. Yes, Ambika, I think penalty is levied, both penalties levied under section 206, correct? Summon, Ambika, is to call a person. You give a notice to call a person, Ambika. That you call a person and then ask him to be present at that particular time and location, and then you can question him and inquire him. That's summon. So you receive a notice from the department and you have to be present out there. I think Sumit is trying to make things interactive, but I don't know. But how can I make it interactive, because I cannot hear you? Sumit, there's no difference between inquiry and inquiry. It was just an mistake out there mentioning E. I think it's I only. No, Ambika, if there is a conflict between ROC, I don't know what conflict are you talking about, but parallel in the sense 2063 can go on and 2065 can go on. Now, parallel in the sense a conflict in the sense that in the process part, if there's a conflict, that is what you mean, that if I want a document and the document lies with other ROC, then you can obviously talk to the ROC, and then because if it is falling within one state, I think there should not be any conflict because the ROC will be same. But even if there is a conflict in any of the situation, I think they can talk to each other and then resolve that conflict. There is no such mention about the conflict part. I hope I'm able to answer Jay, Ambika and Jay. I hope I'm able to answer. And Sumit Jain, please, I would request that if you can just share me the thoughts on how to make the class interactive part, because I can only see the question. That's it. I cannot see you, or neither I can have a direct interaction with you. I cannot hear your voice also. So if you can just give me the option of making the class interactive, I'll do that. I hope Ambika, Jay, and yes, these were the major person who had raised the question. I hope I have been able to answer to your queries. If not, you can always post it, and then if I have any questions remaining unanswered, I will definitely try to answer it. Thank you, Shubham, for again coming back and attending this class. Shubham, Jay, both, because both of you have referred to my previous PPTs. I hope these PPTs will be useful, as they contain a lot of basic structure and chart-wise presentation. Thank you. So thank you all, and see you soon with the next session.